My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasankaran, Guru Piran Neo, fellow Jnanis. Today I'm going to cover the concept of God, part 2, which is the evolution of universe, and I'm going to cover some very interesting concepts of Swamiji's teachings. Here we're going to cover how did our universe emerge, and Swamiji talks about how God, this primordial, created this primordial atom, where darkness pervades, and I'll talk about the darkness concept in the next class in more detail, but I'll touch a little bit. And the whole idea is that prior to this primordial atom, there was this substratum which is eternal or transcendental. Now, that word transcendental is very important. We need to qualify what that transcendental means. There exists this substratum, and our universe did not exist prior to this. So there was a time when our universe was born through this primordial atom, and this primordial atom, became this pulsation, became this cosmic intelligence that created this, matter, created energy, matter, vibration, and then became more complex, entities within this universe, from becoming stars and galaxies and and planets, and eventually became from insentient beings to sentient beings, beings with life, and beings that have instincts, beings that have consciousness and also awareness. And we are part of that continuum. And this evolution of this universe is what I'm going to be talking about today. What is our place in this universe, and where did we all come from? So this vibration, we always call nature. Nature means natural, coming from the root word natural. There is a natural intelligence that is behind this universe. And this is what we want to talk about. It created this fusion called the Big Bang. From there, all the vibrations were created. I'll take you through that. So Swamiji talks about this primordial spark, and this primordial spark is the source, the seed of our universe. And interestingly, everything in this universe was imprinted by this primordial spark, and therein the I, or the cosmic intelligence that initiated all the push, pull, force, energy, matter, basic building blocks of the universe. All these are imprinted throughout the universe, including our biology, including our biological body. If you look at the composition of the universe in terms of, oxygen, nitrogen, all those composition, exactly what the proportion is in the universe exists in our body. So we see that what's imprinted in the universe is imprinted in us. What's really fascinating from this lecture that you will see is that in the first lecture, we covered that the concept of God, Swamiji had both, there are two types of God that he defines. One is the transcendental God, that is formless, dimensionless, you can call it infinite. And the formed God, which takes on form, which is related to our material universe, which comes from that transcendental God that he talks about. So this universe is a manifestation of that transcendental God, but with a four-dimensional physics built in, the forces within that. So everything from this material universe is part and parcel of that transcendental. So he talks about this transcendental God, or big I, and this time-based God, which is caught with, or which is within the physics of that four-dimensional world, where you have three-dimensional space and time. So we've got this two. The interesting thing is that the four-dimensional, the manifestation of God, all these things that are imprinted on the universe is in our biology. We experience that every day. In this material world, we have cause and effect. We every day feel that, right? Gravity pulling us, getting out of the gravity. And interestingly, the question then is that if that time-based God is imprinted in us and we feel that every day, then the question then is that the transcendental God must also be part of our DNA. How do we discover that transcendental universal God? So this is the journey that I want to take you through. And Swamiji talks about this transcendental, formless, dimensionless, you know, dimensions beyond our own existential dimension. And we see that, from there came this primordial atom with the seeds of our universe and the forces of our universe and the laws of our universe. And from there emerged that fusion. And from that fusion, we had, Swamiji spoke about everything's an expansion, manifestation, and evolution of God. And we saw entire universe unravel from this. As I mentioned, this blueprint is imprinted in every star, galaxy, planets, including in us. If you see that when there is this fusion that takes place, you know, uh, when people come together, there's a fusion, and you see that suddenly there's a spark, and you see that the egg is fertilized, and there's a primordial atom. You can say that it's like a primordial atom. There's a fusion that takes place, and then the process of meiosis and mitosis kicks in, and we see that the formation of the entire body. That happens to pretty much most of the biological species that is, in this universe. So we see that this whole principle starts with, this primordial atom, this evolution, and from that primordial seed that emerged our entire universe, including we Homo sapiens as one of the continuum of those, complex beings that are part and parcel of this universe and the building blocks that make us as a being. So two important questions emerge. Why did the primordial atom emerge, and how did it emerge from nothing? And this is the two questions that many seers and many saints and many scientists have this question. And it's a question that I had for the last 35, 40 years as I started practicing and trying to understand Swamiji's teachings. And here it is. This whole idea of our universe, our universe is primarily, when Swamiji says that, he brings this concept of nothingness, this whole idea of nothingness principle. He says, when he says nothing, he means no thing, which means no matter, no energy. So a universe or a substratum that exists prior to our universe, which is our universe is made out of matter and energy. And he brings this notion of the principle of nothingness, this principle where there is no matter and energy. And this predates our universe. Then he goes on to say, so when we mean that it's neither matter and energy, and we have to remember in our universe, we have time. And time is linear. And all of us are caught by time. You see, all of us are looking at our times, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. Tomorrow I've got to do this, we've got to plan, we've got diaries, all planned. So in our universe, matter and energy matters. Time also matters, right? And this is the part that is so important, which is very subtle, that the universe that predates our universe, remember our universe is four-dimensional, three-dimensional space and time. The universe that predates that did not have time because time was created the way in a linear form in our universe. So that means that it is transcendental to time. So the substratum is transcendental to time. What does that mean? Think of a world without time. That means that a world that is eternal. That means neither birth nor death occurs, right? Because for birth and death to occur, time is important. If time is not there, is that what people mean by eternal life? If you see, Mahan talks about this concept of nothingness, is actually about this no matter, energy, and time, this substratum. And this substratum is what he calls as infinite possibilities and potentialities. This is what he talks about, the big I. right? You're not confined by this four-dimensional physics. It is a substratum which is far greater. For the four-dimensional universe, you need so much fusion, to create it. To create this four-dimensional universe requires so much effort. So that means that the substratum that created this four-dimensional universe must be at a higher level, higher order. So let's call it infinite. We don't know, because infinite is a concept that was created by we Homo sapiens as something we know. We can count things. We have one, two, three. We have countable things. The things that we cannot count, which is beyond our scope, we call it infinite. We have a whole mathematics that actually looks at infinite. Though none of us are going to, the material body would not, attain that infiniteness, but there is something within us that have got this infinite component that thinks about infiniteness. And this is the part that is really, so what predates our universe must be a substratum that is infinite, omnipresent or eternal. That means time is not there, which operates at a higher dimension. So let's assume this axiom of infinite with infinite possibilities and potentialities. So the whole question then is that why did the primordial atom emerge and how did it emerge? And this is the part that is really interesting. I thought about this very, very carefully, because there must be a reason why our universe exists, right? It cannot be, it cannot be a fluke, right? So there must be something that invokes this. And this primordial, comes from this infinite substratum. And as I mentioned, it's packed with, it's got interesting phenomena, interesting things, packed with energy and so on. And this is the secret, and this is the part that gives the answer to this notion that while our universe exists, the reason for our universe to exist, right? So Mahan brings this concept of nothing, something by chance. And nothing means prior to our universe, there was nothing, transcendental, timeless, eternal, infinite. You can, name it in any possible ways. And you'll see in many scriptures, they capture this description, right? And then there is this primordial that has emerged, right? This finite, from the infinite, we have finite four-dimensional, three-dimensional space and time, right? And time is one direction. And this is the part where the answer is to Swamiji. So, this notion of this primordial atom. This substratum is infinite possibilities and potentialities. So the possibility of creating our universe, which is four-dimensional, is one of the possibilities. That is why you use the term by chance. By chance means non-zero probability of that, our universe being created. And this is Mahan's way of invoking quantum physics, in a simple way. So one can ask, why did the universe exist? So often people ask, why am I here, right? By chance, our parents got together, by chance, there was an exchange of DNA, and by chance, we had to raise million other, there was a major race that took place, and we won that race, and we got a chance to fertilize the egg and become who we are today. So it's all by chance. The probability of, the non-zero probability of all of us existing because of that infinite possibilities and potentialities. So the answer to this is, why did it emerge? Sometimes you ask great saints, even including Mahan, why did it exist? He said, why not? We always ask why. Is he asking with a time-bound kind of, why not? If you take time off, then it's a natural thing that it is what it should be doing. It's infinite possibilities, can create multitudes of things. And that same component, if you see that infinite possibility exists in our universe, we have multitudes, uncountable galaxies, uncountable, things. Even in our own world, we have varieties of, insects and plants and, species. And this is the imprint of that infinite possibilities and potentialities, right? So we see that in Mahan's concept of nothing, something by chance, he invokes this formless substratum that has got this infinite possibilities and potentialities. By chance, one of the possibilities is our universe, and everything there becomes an expansion, you know, manifestation and evolution. But the genesis of all this is, of course, the primordial atom, but the genesis of this primordial atom is the substratum, which he starts off with, right? And this is what he says, that within that there must be a higher order intelligence, a cosmic intelligence that predates our universe, predates our biology. And this cosmic intelligence is that thread that runs across all of us. And later on, he'll go on to, describe this cosmic intelligence, describe how to touch that vibrations of the cosmic intelligence, and describe how to experience it, and finally how to become that. And over the next few lectures, I'll cover that. So we see that this by chance that Swamiji invokes, which is very important concept, one of the universe is ours. There may be seeds of other universe with different laws and different, physics that governs it. And interestingly, that this concept was in Mahan's mind for a long, long time. And today we see that scientists are speaking about multiverse. Our universe may not be the only universe. There may be other universes, what they call multiverse. Universe means one universe. We thought our universe was the only universe. But, if you read the I God book very, very carefully, he speaks very clearly that our universe is one of the universe which, in the substratum is part, the substratum is able to create this, but the substratum itself is not created by anything. So this notion of our universe is the only universe today is changed. There is greater understanding that, our primordial atom is one of the infinite possibilities. That's what Mahan speaks about by chance. So the current thinking is that there are multiple universes that may exist with different laws of physics. So coming back to our universe, let's understand that better so that we have a better understanding of who we are, what our purpose is. So Swamiji speaks about this, everything, this universe exists from this primordial atom and that spark. And interestingly, that spark, that when it took place, there is uh, this energy that is released, and that energy is part and parcel of everything that exists and reverberates in us as our life force. And that life force is what, Mahan calls the Kundalini. Kundam means the vessel, the Lini is actually the force, the life force that actually gives power and existence to that, entity. So we are here today from that spark. So interestingly, that we are, we see almost 14 billion years of, existence, and everything in the universe is imprinted in us. And the question that we want to ask is that we experience that material world, we experience that time-bound God with a small I. How is it that we are unable to experience the transcendental, that primordial, or the God that exists before our universe, commenced? For that to take place, we need to unravel back, as you see in time, back to that primordial atom and go beyond. What does that mean, going back? It means that to be able to slowly decouple from that material world and bend back inside to be able to slowly slow the time until time, we transcend time. And that is a process of doing that, which Swami speaks about. So we see that, he speaks about we know that the cosmic intelligence is part and parcel of that substratum that created our universe, that imprints, which is part and parcel of our universe, and part and parcel of our intelligence, the intelligence that is able to think, make sense, and it's asking the question, where do I come from? And it's searching That same intelligence, though in a limited way, to acquire the cosmic intelligence, need to be able to create, to be able to transition from that, noisy vibration to a sense of quietude and sublimity and calmness, to be able to go back in time to that nothingness state of that no matter, no energy, and timeless state. And that state is called meditation or yoga. So here again, some examples of how the imprint, this is by a graduate student in Brandeis University, that show how the imprint of the universe, when they look at the neurons of the cells, it looks very similar. And, we see that, as what Swamiji says, the primordial light, fire by scintillating becomes sparks which break up and become part and parcel of all our atoms. The same thing is imprinted in that universe. So the key takeaway from this lecture is that before our universe was created, there was a transcendental substratum. Transcendental means timeless, eternal, and a dimension that is way, way beyond our own dimension. We don't know what the dimension is, but let's say infinite, uncountable, with infinite possibilities and potentialities. That means the ability to create our universe and an infinite host of other universes. So this is a key takeaway that I want you to take away from this lecture, is actually that the substratum that predates our universe is infinite, with infinite possibilities and potentialities. From there emerged the primordial atom. From that primordial atom, we had this four-dimensional universe. From that four-dimensional universe, so I'm going to depict this in a simpler chart. So assume that the dark space is infinite, because it's a very abstract concept. So I'm going to use a simple model to explain this. Assume that the dark space is infinite, and the white space is, this is a primordial atom that gave rise to everything. So think of, our universe, think of our galaxy, think of us starting as this dot, this four-dimensional universe, right? Seed of our universe, seed of ourselves. And from there emerge this ancient being, that emerged from this material universe, right? And that is all of us. Of course, if I was another species, I'll put that species, right? But because I'm a Homo sapien, I've put a Homo sapien here, a thinking person. So this is a sentient being, right? Now, something very interesting that really caught my eyes as I was looking at this very carefully is that this sentient being, so we have this sentient being, a four-dimensional universe, but what's really fascinating is that at the core of the DNA of that sentient being is that imprint of God, the imprint of this substratum, which is timeless, eternal, because, if you look at the logic behind this, is that before our universe, we had a eternal, infinite substratum that gave rise to the primordial atom, our universe, planets, including our biology. A part of that four-dimensional universe is imprinted in our gross body, but a part of that infinite is also imprinted in us, right? So this is where Swamiji says, that core of this God is part and parcel of us. This is the divine nectar of awareness. And what is that awareness? That's our consciousness. The ability, that intelligence that he talks about, that cosmic intelligence, is imprinted within us. And this is why we're able to, be aware. We have, we're conscious of things. We are rationalizing, and a whole range of things that we're thinking. So this intelligence comes from the cosmic intelligence. It's a little bit more at a lower level, but it has the capacity to expand. So Mahan says that we are God in different forms. The question then is that, if God is infinite and omnipresent, how close God is from us? Why is it that we can't cognize? The reason why we can't cognize is that we have always, our attention is always on the gross body and the material world. So we miss the subtle body or the infinite, the formless, right? So deep in the core, Mahan makes this case that the closest distance this God is, this substratum, which is infinite, formless, is zero distance from us. It is the core to us. It is part and parcel of us. We are a manifestation of that. So zero distance, and the distance is not, a distance externally, but the distance when the mind becomes one with that substratum. So that's zero distance. The classic case, if you see this example in part one, it shows very clearly that this you know uh, substratum that passes through this four-dimensional material universe refracts and disperses in that same way that universal formless substratum, when it makes its way into the four-dimensional universe, it refracts and disperses. Like how this white light gives you colorful spectrum, in that same way, this substratum, which is formless, dimensionless, colorless, as it makes its way into the four-dimensional universe, the physics of this material world takes over, as how the prism, the physics of the prism, refracts light. In the same way, we see that dimension that we have, which is formless dimension, gives us a colorful and dynamic life. And it's a spectrum that comes from that single light. And that's what gives us the cycle of life. But at the core of that cycle of light, you see that infinite is there. That black space is there. Right? So it all from our primordial atom here is how when we first started to being a baby, right up to the different evolution, that substratum, infinite substratum, is part and parcel of our core. We miss it because we are always focused on that four-dimensional universe that we live in. So how to transcend that distance, the distance, to create that zero distance with God? How do we become one with the transcendental substratum? This is where, throughout Mahan's book, he speaks about meditation, yoga. The word yoga, in the root word, comes from yug, means to be in union with. Though how colorful our life is, we need to always bring back our mind to our original substratum, which is formless, dimensionless, infinite. So when we do that, we're able to, fold space and time. It subsumes in that substratum, which is formless, dimensionless, and infinite. So this is what Swamiji's concept of God is. He said, why is it we miss it? Because we are so focused on that material world, on the small eye. And the way to understand this is to be able to go within ourselves. He always says, Unarvu Gamanipa, focus on that vibration. What vibration is he speaking about? The vibration that emanates, that Kundalini, that is a manifestation of that formless substratum. When that formless substratum comes in contact with the four-dimensional universe, it reverberates as the Kundalini. He says, and the Kundalini refracts as all the other vibrations in our lives. He says, when we quieten that, we come back to that base primordial vibration. He says, use the base primordial vibration to go back to our primordial atom state and go back further, and you see that you come to that transcendental, God state. So moving from the form to the formless God. And this is what the concept of Mahan's evolution of the universe. The universe unraveled from the substratum. To get back there, one needs to go back using the yoga or the yug approach. And Mahan's method is the Kundalini yoga method. Thank you, Santosh.